I'm sure when they finally point a gun to my head, I'm going to be a bit nervous. But all in all, it is what it is.
Andrew and Tristan Tate were arrested by Romanian police and detained for 24 hours.
A controversial social media influencer, Andrew Tate.
No, we're very innocent men, and in time, everybody's going to see that, and we're very excited to finish this judicial process and clear our names. And we all live one life, try to make your mark on the world and make people understand how and why you think, and try and be a positive influence and have children, and I've done all of those things. My mother and father broke up when I was 10. We moved to England.
How did that affect you?
I'm carrying boxes of fish in a fish market at 7 in the morning for $40 a day. I'm not a rich guy. I'm just a poor guy with lots of money. People who misunderstand me have deliberately misunderstood me because they want to try and tear down my character. My soul is not for sale, neither are my principles.
I ask your thoughts on President Biden.
You're certainly trying to get me killed.
What are your thoughts on the upcoming election, President Donald Trump?
Putin nailed it. It's the last hope for the West.
If President Tate was in office, as crazy as that sounds,
I think the world would be a dramatically different place in 20 years.
you getting thrown in jail.
I was put in the same cell as Tristan. We were put together so they could bug the cell. I had prepared for it the best I could. I wasn't ready for the level of Matrix attack I was subject to. Making money is very important when you fight a war.
Recurring revenue.
Hundreds of thousands of students.
Did Andrew Tate ever try monogamy?
Where else have people who have inspired millions who spoke against authority ever ended up besides jail or dead?
Good point.
The Matrix is calling.
Time's up. Hi, my name is Andrew Tate. I went from a single mother household to a kickboxing world champion, to thrown in a Romanian jail cell, to trying to help you all escape the Matrix, and I am one of the passionate few.
Sit back and let's enjoy the passionate few because this is about to be crazy. Just dropped.
I really enjoyed the interview with Omar today.
Links
I
in
think
the description.
Interesting when podcasts deep dive on certain subjects, but also I think it's interesting where they touch on lots of subjects and inspire people to do a deep dive themselves and see how the topics and the subjects apply to them specifically. I hope people enjoy it.
Before we delve into this interview, you have to know that a few days after we filmed this, he was actually arrested again by Romanian officials facing UK extradition on new charges. He shares things he's never shared publicly before at great risk to him and his safety. So I want to encourage you guys to really pay attention to the very end because we talked about it all. Also, if you want exclusive access to the raw, uncensored, and unfiltered conversation of this two-part interview, you can have that 100% free by texting the word TATE to 323-919-8510, and you'll get instant access to it there. You can also check it out in the description down below to subscribe for email. And with no further ado, I want to encourage you guys to sit back, relax, enjoy this incredible interview.
We're going to be playing chess at the same time
inside
watching
the
this,
soul,
getting some
none
insight.
other than Andrew Tate. Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Passionate Few podcast. It's your host Omar, and today we have the privilege in Romania to sit down with none other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Andrew Tate. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Andrew.
Good to meet you, sir.
Oh man, appreciate you hosting us here in Romania and having us come to your beautiful country, and excited to get into this today.
Yeah, I want to show you guys around. Romania's got a very bad reputation internationally in general, and also because of what they've done to me. But to be fair to the place, it's actually a very nice place. It's a very nice country. It's safe. By all the metrics you can measure a society by, it's pretty good, except for corruption. But then, you know, we've just started the podcast, so I don't want to start off too strong and start screaming at the camera that America's the most corrupt nation on earth. And so I'm going to calm down a little bit. But yeah, it's a good place.
Well, speaking of America, we actually know that you're a big fan of Airheads. So we actually brought you some from the States.
Thank you very much.
And wanted to ask you, why Airheads?
You know, I've always loved these as a child. And then when I left America, I think I was 11 or 10. I missed them. They didn't exist in England. And I've never really had them since. And now I keep getting given Airheads. I'm going to end up fat. My entire, my physique, which I've worked on my whole life, is going to be disappeared because they're so addictive. It's kind of interesting. You just said, I know you're a fan of Airheads. I know this is going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway. That reminded me instantly. It made me think of a bunch of jokes about bimbo women.
Yeah, I know.
And I thought, thinking, what do I say them? My brain was running quickly. You said, I know you're a fan of Airheads. And I thought about 30 jokes going, jail, that put me in jail, that put me in jail, that put me in jail. Let me just take the candy.
Before we get into it, you know, we'll talk about a lot of what's going on. Obviously, you know, not just what you've been going through with the Matrix.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, for people who may have not heard the origin story, talk to me a little bit about where you grew up.
Yeah.
I know you grew up in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
But talk to me about young Andrew before you became literally the most viral person on earth.
Talk to me. What was young Andrew? Where did he grow up? And where did the formation for this ambition really begin for you as a kid?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was born in D.C., and then we moved to Indiana. We lived just outside of Gary, Indiana. And my father was a professional chess player, and I understood I had to work hard and I had to do each of my last name. And from as young as I can remember, I was told, no, you have to be exceptional because your last name is Tate. It was very clear to me. It was never any other type of life that was laid out for me. I never expected to have any other easy life or never expected to have a normal life. My mother and father broke up when I was 10. We moved to England.
How did that affect you?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons, if I had to self-analyze, when I moved from America to England, obviously you start all over again, you go to a new school, you have to make new friends, and back then, I don't know how long ago that was, 20-something years, whatever. If you're American in England, it was slightly more unusual. And the kids would make fun of your accent or whatever, and you have to learn to stick up for yourself. You have to learn to fight and to be brave. And if I had to be a psychotherapist, if I believed in these things and had to analyze my past as to why I am the way I am, I think the fact that at a fairly young age I was ostracized and forced to defend myself and forced to stick up for myself and was happy to have a different point of view because I knew nobody could pick on me, that probably has something to do with the reason I am the person I am, if I had to analyze it. So you got me thinking now, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I need to take all my kids and pluck them and just drag them out of school and drop them in Mongolia somewhere.
Yeah.
And see how that...
Was it something like a series of events? Because I can relate to that, where you feel like an outcast. You don't quite feel at home here. You don't quite feel at home with this group. So it teaches you to kind of stick up for yourself and fight for yourself.
I think it was just my brother and I. We turned up. Everyone said, haha, you're weird American kids. We said, yeah, we are. Say something to our face. And they wouldn't. And that was it. And it just became us two.
Against the world.
Against the world. And
nothing's changed.
Not much has changed.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it's supposed to be. It's very interesting when you understand the brutal dynamics of humanity and also the brutal dynamics of opinions in general. But unless you're prepared to defend your opinion, usually physically, especially outside of the internet world, you don't have an opinion at all. If you can't defend your ideas, if someone comes to you and says, I disagree with you, and you're afraid of that person, well, then you're not going to have any ideas different than what the Matrix wants you to hold. It takes a lot of bravery to stand up and say, I don't care, I know I'm right, despite the fact that the whole group or society or the consensus is saying this, because you're going to pay for that at some point. I know we live in a world now where physical confrontation and physical violence alone is not enough, but I still think it's intrinsic inside of the human condition. When you know that you are capable in that realm, you're more likely to stand up against the system. But you can't have an opinion if you don't defend it. If you can't defend it, if a guy comes up to you and says 2 + 2 is 5, and he can beat the shit out of you, I mean, maybe you'll end up a bloody pulp, or maybe you'll give up sooner, but sooner or later, 2 + 2 is going to equal 5. That's the reality of the world. So
if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think, just to talk about the childhood thing, I understood from a young age I had to stick up for myself and defend my ideas, and my ideas were always different, and I was always an outcast, I guess, to a degree, and that certainly played a part later on in my life, because it's been very easy for me to look at the programming the Matrix is trying to push down my throat and just say no.
Did you discuss a lot of philosophy with your dad growing up? Was he a confidant in that way? I know he's a chess master, but was he somebody you pitch and catch with, or was it mostly you and your brother that kind of pitch and catched a lot of these things early on?
My dad had his own philosophies. We definitely never read any philosophical books. We didn't study any old philosophers, but he'd say things now, which you can even still see his Twitter. If you want to see a philosopher, you can go through his Twitter now and see all of the things he was saying when he was still alive.
Yeah.
But I think life is actually pretty simple. There's action and reaction. There's cause and effect. There's brave people and there's cowards. A lot of people are self-interested. And if you understand the basis of these motivations, it's not difficult to work out why the world functions the way it does. And cause and effect and action and reaction are very real. And I think one of the largest plagues we have in the world today is a lack of action amongst people. And deciding not to act is an action in and of itself, right?
Fair play.
And
True.
And that's the only philosophy you need for life. If you want something to move, you have to move it. If you sit and wait for somebody else to move it, you're a coward. And you're just hoping it's going to happen.
Period. Absolutely.
And that's
It's
why
crazy
I don't
'cause it's
understand
true.
when a lot of people who see where the world is going and see the future that's going to be laid out for their children kind of just hope and pray when they really need to be taking a more active role, even if it's as simple as discussing every subject with anyone who will listen and try to
Open their mind.
open minds, correct, yeah.
Now, real
The
quick,
Matrix.
I want to touch base one more time. The young Andrew Tate, when he was coming up and having these sorts of thoughts, what were you like as you got into your teens? Were you a ladies' man? Did you have a girl break your heart, that first one? I'm sure the
Ladies.
stories are famous.
Everyone's
but
had their heart broken by a girl, haven't they?
do you remember the first one? That really did it for you?
Yeah, everyone's had their heart broken by a girl when they're a teenager. I can't say her name because I'm famous now and she isn't. So. I can't make her famous or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everyone's had their heart broken by a girl, and that's an important part of life. I'm sure every girl's had her heart broken by a man. I don't think it's gendered. I think that's just how the society functions. That's just how it goes.
Well, the reason I ask too is because a lot of people that we've interviewed, a lot of high-level entrepreneurs, billionaires, a lot of people who've done big things, a lot of them had a chip on their shoulder early on. Even Will Smith talks about the fact that he wouldn't have been the biggest actor in the world if that first girl didn't break his heart because he swore to himself.
I think his current girl's breaking his heart. I don't think he was worried about the first one. He's worried about the one he's with now. Bro, chip on his shoulder, he needs to get it back. Jesus.
But was there ever anything like that for you? Like something when you were young, you're like, man, I'm going to prove to the world. Like what started that fire inside early on? Or did it kind of just develop through time and get hotter and hotter?
Well, I think everybody has a fire inside of them, but it's pacified. It's deliberately extinguished by society because one, the Matrix wants you docile, which is the first thing. And second thing is people live lives of comfort. A lot of people, I think all men are born with a masculine desire to conquer Earth. And I think you're only going to be happy if you're conquering. But if you're living a semi-comfortable life and your mother is nice to you and you're not under any pressure and the Matrix is telling you it's fine to just be average, well, then you're going to be sitting there being average. I was never comforted. I was never given an easy life. I never had anyone in my life who was saying, don't worry, Andrew, it's okay to just be this guy. I was told the opposite all the time. I don't know if the fire inside of me is any bigger than it is inside of every other man. And I think that every man at home watching this, if they don't have the things they want in life, should feel a degree of resentment towards themselves or disappointment, understanding that they have the same desire and drive that I have. They just allowed themselves to be psyoped out of it. They've allowed the Matrix or whoever to convince them it's okay to not be the man they could be. And I never allowed anybody to do that to me. I've had a lot of people try. I've had girlfriends say, Andrew, you're rich enough, and why are you going to jail, and why all this stress? Why can't we just relax, just be quiet, just, you know, and my mom has said it, women usually, because they protect, that's how a woman will protect you, right? A man will die beside you. A woman can only protect you by trying to convince you out of going to war in the first place. And I could sit here and listen to them and say, I've done enough and I'm rich enough and blah, blah, blah. But then I wouldn't be me.
Absolutely.
You know, so, and I think that people fall for that trap early on in life. There's many stages of life. You can be 5 years old and your mother doesn't want you to go boxing because you might get hit, and the dad might be like, yeah, I guess. A lot of it is feminine energy. And then another huge part of it is the Matrix-led propaganda, because they don't like masculine imperatives because it defends the society, which they're trying to destroy. But I lived in a household where my father was in charge and my mother wasn't allowed to baby us, and we were always pushed to be the same way.
Has Andrew Tate ever had a job?
Oh yeah, I've had jobs.
What were your first jobs? Walk people down that lane.
I'm not a rich guy.
Fishmonger.
I'm just a poor guy with lots of money. I am, no, but I mean that. I've had jobs. I started off my first job, I was carrying boxes of fish.
How old were you?
15.
50. That was your first job?
Yeah, there were like 25 kilo boxes of fish with ice in them, and I was carrying them from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. at a fish market. That was my first job. I've worked in sales. I was an IT technician at my school.
No way.
Yeah, I've done loads of things. I've done loads of jobs.
Andrew Tate was on sales calls?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Nah, forget that.
I've done
IT
loads
technician.
Of different jobs.
That's crazy.
And I'm very glad I grew up in the real world, because I think that there's no light without dark. And if you're born rich or you're born privileged, you're going to have a particularly unique experience of misery, because you're not going to be truly happy. You're not going to understand why. And no one's going to ever feel sorry for you or understand it, because, of course, you're from a privileged background. You're living this great life. But you need to have had bad things happen to you for you to appreciate any of the good things you're ever going to have. So,
true.
In fact, when my brother and I talk, often we talk about the stories from the bad days. Our best stories, our happiest memories are when we were completely broke. It's kind of funny how the good old days are constantly being lived and you don't appreciate them till afterwards.
Crazy.
But yeah, I've worked a bunch of normal jobs. I've lived a very normal life until I reached the highest echelon of finances. And I guess that's where you learn all the lessons on the way, where you start from a single mother household on government housing all the way to the top, to having companies worth billions of dollars, and you pass through all the different stages along the way, and you see all the different attitudes of the people as you go through it.
What were some of the other jobs, if you don't mind me asking, that you had? You fish, sales?
So yeah, I worked in the fish market for a while. which was fun, but it was very physically intensive, and I was training at the time. I wanted to become a kickboxing world champion, so I decided to get an easier job. I got a job as an IT technician at my own school, at my old school. I was 17 then.
You went to college?
No, I did go to college. I went to college in England, but I'm not sure how it matches up with the American educational system. So
sure.
I finished high school at 16. I went to college 17 and 18. When I was 18 and I finished college, I went back to my old high school and worked as an IT technician, but I got fired for sleeping with one of the students.
Was she hot?
Very hot. She was 16, I was 18, I got fired. And then I got fired from there, and then I went and got a sales job.
How did sales sharpen you? Because one of the common denominators of some of the most successful people in the world has always been sales. I did door-to-door sales.
Yep.
I used to work selling solar. I later worked at Tesla. And it was always in sales, and it sharpens you to a whole new level. How did sales?
I think the best salespeople in the world are double glazing salesmen.
What is that?
Windows double glazing salesmen.
Why is that?
I think that must be the hardest sales job, because if you sell cars, for example, somebody turns up on the car lot, and they've turned up at the Audi dealership because they have a degree of respect for the Audi brand, and they maybe want an Audi. And you have to convince them it's better than the BMW and make sure they can afford it and sell them the Audi. Okay, fine. But if you're going to sell somebody windows, they already have
windows.
They already have windows in their house. You're not turning up to some crack den with no windows. So firstly, you have to make them want the windows.
Right.
That's the first thing you have to do. You unsolicitedly knock on someone's door and say, I'm here to give you windows. And they're going to say, I have windows, I don't want windows. And then you're going to sit there and convince them that they need windows. And then once you've convinced them of that, you have to convince them to choose you over all your competitors and spend thousands and thousands of dollars, $20,000 or $30,000 replacing plastic and glass that they already had in their walls. I think that'd be a very hard job to do. And I think that
Extremely.
that would make you a very good salesman. But life is sales in general, right? You have to be able to make people understand the way you think. And I think that's all sales effectively is. It's having thoughts and being able to project them in a way that people follow them logically and want to agree with you or are inclined to agree with you at the end. So I think life is sales. Getting a girl to fall in love with you to a degree is sales. And
Makes
convincing
sense.
a judge you're innocent is sales.
And it builds tremendous character and resilience.
We have to
yeah.
get used to being rejected.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of times over. Yeah, it builds character.
And it's amazing how if you start a sales job and you're rejected at the beginning, it's such a big deal, but after a while, the rejection just doesn't sting anymore.
Yeah.
Which perhaps answers back earlier when we were talking about my confidence to sit here and say things that get me in trouble. It just doesn't sting anymore.
Did you?
This will come out and the BBC will type up something about what I said and how bad of a person I am, and I won't care. It just doesn't matter anymore. So I'm that guy now. I just keep knocking at the door of fate. I keep knocking at the door waiting for them to eventually grab me and throw me in the cell. So we'll see how it goes.
Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about your desire to grow on social media.
Yeah.
How much of it was to grow the business through e-commerce and online with infinite scale versus get your message to the world? I'm sure it was a little bit of the two, but when you were sitting there planning your social media 3-step plan of attack, what was the primary motive for you?
So the primary
question.
motive is that COVID pissed me off. COVID annoyed me. I lost faith in humanity during COVID. I couldn't stand people anymore. I decided to become as well known as possible deliberately so that I could get canceled, so that I could drive traffic to my own social networks, because I kept getting banned everywhere. I've lost like 12 Twitter accounts. I lost my YouTube. I was banned on everything. And then, of course, making money is very important when you fight a war, and having traffic driven to my e-commerce products or my Hustlers University is good because it allows me to fund myself in the war. But I was already rich. I already had a lot of money. And the reason my school exists isn't for me to make money. That's not why it exists. It's interesting now you've asked me this question. It's an amalgamation of lots of different ideas, but I always had the intention of getting a network of people who understood how the world really worked and a place where you could truly speak freely. And then I wanted those people to be as powerful as possible. I don't want the people who understand how the world works to be brokies. I want them to be rich, because that allows them to fight against the matrix and have some kind of influence. You don't want a whole bunch of people broke working wagey jobs. They can't do very much unless you want to have a violent revolution. You want people who earn money online or geographically free or have large platforms or can speak aloud, who aren't afraid of being canceled to fight an information war. So we ended up with this amalgamation of building my own social network and then me trying to teach those people to make money and me being able to speak freely inside of the network. And that's kind of where the whole university came together and formed into its current state. I think we have over 200,000 members now, so we're very large.
How important do you think it is for people to make money online with e-commerce?
Hey guys, we'll get right back to this video in a sec, but first, I have a quick question for you.
Given that the e-commerce industry is growing by the trillions year over year, have you ever dreamed of running your own e-commerce business like many of the guests we've interviewed on the show? But maybe you felt overwhelmed about where to begin? Lucky for you, today's sponsor, Zendrop, solves this exact problem. You see, with Zendrop, you simply select high-quality products, add them to your store, and they handle shipping and fulfillment, while it only takes 5 minutes or less to sign.
The mortgage to pay. I would argue that a lot of people begrudgingly took it. I probably think the majority of people begrudgingly took it because they had bills to pay. So if you make money online, sure, it's harder to make you do that. But you don't necessarily have to make money online. You have to make money in a manner in which it's harder for the matrix to force you to do things you don't want to do.
So you have freedom and control over your own
And freedom of
future.
speech, because a lot of people can't say what they think.
I want to ask you this, and it's related to the business side of things, switching gear. A lot of our audience, we've interviewed a lot of billion-dollar entrepreneurs, a lot of high-level people. We've had Patrick Bet-David on the show, who I know did a great, wonderful
Shout
interview
out.
with you. He's a mutual good friend. A lot of people wonder about how you built your empire. So I want to get into some of your mindset. Before jail and all this, talk to me a little bit about how you went from 0 to $1 million, million to 10 million, and whatever you're comfortable sharing, just so people can see your mind frame, you know what I mean, like business moves you made early on, just because a lot of our audience is entrepreneurial minded. How did Andrew Tate go from 0 to $1 million, million to 10, that you're comfortable sharing and beyond?
Sure. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to address this webcam thing because everyone asks me about it, and a lot of people conflate my current scenario and the situation I'm in with my old webcam business, even though they're not related at all.
Was that your first business?
No, I had lots of different businesses. I did lots of different things. I can give some general lessons,
Sure,
which I think perhaps are better, and we can talk about general entrepreneurship. But I want to address the webcam thing quickly because a lot of people think that was how I made all of my money, and that's not true at all. You make money by being perspicacious and indefatigable, and you have to find disruptive industries to a degree. You have to be in before everybody else. And I was involved in the webcam business long before it was mainstream and everybody else was doing it, which is why it was lucrative for me. I am from the streets. I'm from the ghetto, effectively. I'm from a very bad area of England. I grew up in a single mother household, and everyone around me was dealing drugs and killing each other and stabbing and breaking into houses and stealing cars, and all I did was drive traffic to web pages. And I did what I had to do to get out. And now, based on my Islamic reversion, I'm not particularly proud of it, but it's one of those things, and you learn lessons along the way. And I know I haven't done bad to anybody. I don't know I shouldn't have to be sorry for it, because the people around me were doing far worse. It's like Jay-Z sold crack. Nobody gives him a hard time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So that was one of the ways I made money.
Was that the first million?
No. Was that the first million? I think I made $1 million before that, but turnover, and certainly not profit. But the first $1 million in profit, the $1 million I had in my bank, probably came a little bit after that. But it's amazing, I guess the overview lessons I'm going to give. It's actually amazing how general business strategy can apply to anything. It doesn't matter if you're running a webcam business, it doesn't matter if you're running a car wash. If you understand the realities of how money moves and you understand the realities of business, you're always going to be successful. And you need to be able to apply yourself and work hard and all these things, the basic cliches that everybody understands.
Yeah.
But I think in the world today, a lot of business has changed. And I'll be honest with you, I actually think we're entering a brand new stage of how money is generated. And I think that all of the old models of how money is generated are going to fall to the wayside pretty quickly.
Such as?
I even think social media is going to have to change. And I'm going to say this here in case I'm totally wrong, and maybe I'll look like a fool, or maybe I'll look like a genius.
I
But
believe
up until
that,
this point, social media and all these large companies have made money by stealing your information and understanding how you act and operate by spying on you, and then selling advertising. And I feel like the advertising model is even starting to die. I feel like people who are most successful now using social media are doing it by garnering attention virally. So they're getting free advertising effectively.
Right.
And the old model of just pure advertising campaigns doesn't work anymore. And as AI comes into play, and as video content can be created from anywhere, as people decide to create their own realities and their own video games and their own movies they want to watch as opposed to watching anyone else's, I don't know if anyone's going to be sitting there consuming these adverts like before, or even responding to them. I don't know who even responds to adverts on Google or YouTube or any of these things anymore like they used to. I just think the whole advertising model as a whole is going to fall. And they're going to have to find a brand new way to monetize. I do believe it's an attention economy we live in. I think you need to garner attention and find a way to monetize it off the back of it. But I don't think that the traditional advertising model of these social media companies is going to continue for a very long time. I think it's starting to fail. And the reason I say that is I know a lot of people who run advertising campaigns now on Google and YouTube and these things, and the returns they talk about compared to somebody who lives true to themselves and has attention garnered via virality are minuscule. And I don't think that the advertising model is going to continue to work for a very long time. To make money in the world today, you need to prove brutal competence, and you need to find a USP, which has always been the case. You need to find a way to garner attention, which has always been the case. I feel like...
When you say USP, you mean unique selling proposition?
You need a USP, yeah, you need a unique selling proposition. But we're entering a very interesting stage, and the reason I'm talking about this specifically is inside of my school, Hustlers University, we teach artificial intelligence, and I think AI is going to come and wreck the majority of people in the next 10 to 15 years, maximum, maybe even 3 to 4 years if you're not implementing it in your business now.
I can see that happening as well.
Crypto was a disruptive industry, and crypto was a play where if you believed in cryptocurrency early enough, you could have become monumentally wealthy. But I think the proposition of believing in cryptocurrency would have been a hard leap for most people to make. If you talked about Bitcoin early on, it would have been like, okay, internet magic money, that's outside of the banks, and it's going to go up, and I'm going to make money. That's hard to believe.
Yeah, there's no mental reference for it.
There's no mental reference. However, AI is a much easier jump. I think most people at home understand that AI is coming here, and it's going to be here to stay, and it's going to change every single facet of how our world operates.
Right.
And you'd be a fool to not believe those things. So you need to be in AI early like people got into crypto early. Crypto is a hard decision to make because it's a hard jump to make, but AI is an easy jump. And anyone who's not trying to build AI into their business right now, whether they're a plumber, whether they're a barista, you can name anything. There has to be a way to get artificial intelligence involved in the company you're currently running and learn how artificial intelligence works, because I think that's going to be the future of the people who truly make it and those who don't. And the reason is because they talk about removing the link between your time and your money, because if they're linked, you're going to run out of time and you're never going to be able to get rich if you sell your time for money.
Right.
But the machines never sleep. And I'm already testing a whole bunch of theories and methods which allow us to use artificial intelligence to make a lot more money than we currently do. And I can give you endless examples of it. I'll give you a very simple example. Let me give you a hypothetical, because I don't want to give away too many of my secrets. I'll be careful what I say.
Too much sauce.
Let's imagine right now I had a sales team. And I had a sales team of 10 men. I would try to build my own version of ChatGPT or my own chatbot, or I'd be trying to make sure that the artificial intelligence mind knows what it needs to know to answer questions, and I would compare it against my lowest salesman, my worst salesman, and see how it does. Because firstly, it's free, effectively. Secondly, it never needs to sleep and never needs holiday pay. And let's say it's only half as effective as my worst salesman. That's fine if you can feed it double the leads. If you can find leads now at low enough cost, you can make more money from a free machine than you can your lowest performing person.
Yeah, and deal with the logistical complexity of management. Yeah.
Absolutely. So is that worth a try? Yes, because across the next 2 to 3 years, that machine is going to get better exponentially. Is the person who has been working for you for 10 years and is still your lowest salesman ever going to truly get better? Probably not. And I think getting in early and being involved in this disruptive industry at a point now where it's not mainstream is going to be the difference between the companies that survive into the future and those that don't. Because just like Bitcoin, when everybody starts doing it, a lot of the opportunity is going to disappear.
Too late.
And I think that it doesn't matter what industry you're thinking of getting involved in now or what you're thinking of doing, you should be looking at how you can use AI right now to make as much money as possible. And that's the advice I'm giving to people. And that's what we're teaching inside of our school as well in Hustlers University. Every single campus, we have a specific campus around artificial intelligence, which we teach. And every other campus, all the other money-making methods, we also teach how to integrate AI with them. Because I think the future is actually going to be people who can't make any money at all, and then people who know how to make the machines make money for them. That's where I think we're going to end up. Perhaps that's the future I'm betting on. And if I'm wrong, I've already got enough money, so we'll see.
Sam Altman from ChatGPT talks about he believes that there'll be billion-dollar companies that are 1, 2, 3 person like companies because of the power of AI. Let me ask you this. How important do you think building a personal brand is in 2024, 2025, and beyond to growing a business?
Very important.
It's credibility, which is one of the most important things. It's authenticity, which is one of the most important things. It comes with a lot of heat and a lot of smoke, which I don't think many people are prepared for. And it depends what you're selling. I mean, a personal brand is exactly that, a personal brand. If you have a company, then your company has a brand ethos. So you have to, what's the point of a brand in the first place? The point of a brand in the first place is credibility and relatability and authenticity.
And trust.
And trust. So it has to be done at some regard, at some level. You can decide if you want to hide behind a company to protect your personal life, or if you can be the face of your company yourself and suffer. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. Your personal life suffers when you're a personal brand.
True.
But
especially when you're Andrew Tate.
well, yeah, in my particular case, but then also there's been massive and monumental benefits. There are some good things about it.
Right.
So it depends what you want to do and what industry you want to get involved in. A lot of people ask me about personal branding and come and say, should I do a personal brand? And I'd often argue that it doesn't matter if you should or not. Firstly, can you? Can you do a personal brand?
And what are you reverse engineering, or what are you optimizing for? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I mean, can you do a personal brand? What about you as a person is going to get people vested in you? And if you actually go down the rabbit hole and analyze it, you're going to realize that unless you've suffered and had a difficult life and have a bunch of interesting stories and war stories and all the things we're talking about, all the bad things, you're going to suffer to build a personal brand anyway. If you're born into a rich family and your life goes well and everything's fine and now you have a bunch of money and you try and start a personal brand based on the fact that you have money, nobody's going to care. Nobody's interested in all the good things that have happened to you, and nobody's interested in how nice your life is. Nobody cares. Maybe if you show enough money, you can get some temporary interest, but not for long. The only people who can build a brand off having a perfect life are women. Look, I'm beautiful. Look, I'm in Louis Vuitton. Look, I'm skiing. Chicks can do that because they're physically attractive. Men can't. All the men you can name with truly strong personal brands have very interesting stories, and interesting stories usually involve danger, risk, pain, suffering. Those are the things.
Triumph over
exactly. So if you say, oh, should I build a personal brand? Well, can you? And if you can,
good question,
then perhaps you should consider it. But if you can't, then you have to sit and say, well, how could I? And the only way you could is to suffer. Are you prepared to suffer in the real world, not on the internet, not pretending to suffer on Twitter? Are you prepared to suffer in the real world, the genuine consequence and the genuine risk that it's going to take for you to be interesting enough for people to sit and want to listen to you, for you to have a strong personal brand? That's the actual question.
True.
When people say about personal branding. Because Batman's personal brand is kicking everyone's ass, and he only did that because his parents got killed. So you have to decide, do you want to have would you choose to have your parents killed to be Batman? At that level. So, because I think a lot of personal branding, especially at the beginning of personal branding, you could buy a fast car and that was it. You could rent a car and talk some shit. But everyone's bored of that now.
Right.
I kind of feel like I've raised the bar and kind of ruined it for everyone. It's kind of
1,000,000%.
It's kind of hard now to be interesting. To yeah, but did they throw you in a dungeon in Romania? No, boring. Boring.
Do you have a Bugatti? 59 cars.
I kind of ruined it. Yeah, do you have a Bugatti? Lambo broke. Yeah. No, but
the reason I ask is because we have a big part of our audience. We have a newsletter. We have a school community, and we teach different parts of personal branding. So I'm curious if you have any tips. Obviously, no one's going to have that.
Yeah, there's my tips for you. Go suffer.
And share those stories in an empowering way with
people.
Go
suffer and tell people all the lessons you learned along the way, and people will respect you knowing that you've been through something which is difficult. Respect has always lied on the other side of fear. It still does right now. The reason we all watch the big boxing match and have so much respect for the men who get in there is because it's scary to do. And even if you don't cerebrally sit and think, I would be scared to fight in Madison Square Gardens in front of all these people, well then go sign up for a fight and you'll learn very quickly that you are scared, because now you've even just started training for it. You're nowhere near the event and you're nervous all the time and you don't want to do it because it's terrifying. Respect lies on the other side of fear. So people are going to respect you if you do things that they'd be scared to do themselves.
That's difficult.
And then they're going to say, well, I don't want to go through that because that sounds scary. That sounds terrible. Let me at least try and get the lessons from it. And he's gone through it, so I can learn from his experience, or I can learn from his mistake. I think as AI, we're talking about them replacing salesmen. Well, AI could replace a lot of personal brands too now. ChatGPT is pretty good. Some people are so basic and so vaporous and so thin that ChatGPT could talk the same kind of garbage they talk. Unless you have some suffering to anchor to, how can you have any kind of personal brand at all? Yeah, maybe I'm just talking from my own experience because my brand is built on pain and suffering, and maybe I'm trying to cope my way for having all the bad things happen to me that have happened to me. But if I didn't have them all, I don't know what I'd talk about.
Would people listen? Would people care?
But what would I talk about? I have a fast car? Okay, I have a fast car. But the coolest thing about me having a fast car is I grew up with absolutely nothing. The coolest thing about me having a fast car is that they tried to take it off me and threw me in a dungeon. The coolest thing about me having a fast car is when I'm gonna get back in it after they failed to seize it off me when I was on an Interpol red notice for garbage. That's the cool part of it.
Yeah.
Without the dark, there's no light.
Yeah. There's no appreciation for the light. It's interesting. It's like, kind of like, we're working on getting Dana White on the podcast, Conor McGregor on the podcast. And so many people love Conor's story because it's classic. He was a plumber in Ireland.
Yep.
And he came from very humble beginnings, dirt poor, was trying to figure out how to make it work. And now the story is, people champion him because they see versions of themselves in him, right? In their low situation, their low challenge.
Yeah.
And then today, he's, obviously been the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Conor McGregor?
I like Conor.
Have you ever talked to him or connected with him?
Yeah, I have to be careful who I say I know, but
Gotcha.
I've yet to meet him in person. But I like Conor. I have respect for anybody who stands up for what they believe in. And truthfully, even if you disagree with me on every single subject, if you stand up for what you believe in and you act remotely honorably, I have respect for you as a person. And it takes a lot of different types of people to keep the world functioning. Mm-hmm. I don't like snakery, and I don't like deception, and I don't like dishonesty. But I feel like Conor, I'm sure we don't agree on everything. I feel like he's an honest person. Mm-hmm. He probably says what he means and means what he says. And that's enough for me to get my base respect as a man.
Yeah.
And he has another fight coming up soon. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe after we'll organize a little round table, me, you, and Conor.
That would be a very interesting conversation. We'll see how that one goes.
I'll work on it.
But yeah, you're right. His affinity was with the common man because he comes from a common place, as do I. But I feel like if you're trying to build a personal brand, I think people now are looking for, I think the internet landscape is also changing because I don't think people are looking to be just entertained anymore. 3 or 4 years ago, even 5 years ago, you could be entertaining.
Come on, my friend.
And people cared.
Right.
Because life wasn't perhaps as difficult as it was. Inflation wasn't so high, whatever you want to call it. But they just watch a show and go, okay, he's being a clown, I'm entertained, fine. I think people are looking for answers now. I think people are looking for solutions. And they're only going to believe and trust in the answers you give them if you've tried and tested them, which requires suffering. Mm-hmm. I think that the internet landscape is changing. People aren't so interested in watching people just have fun anymore. Yeah. People aren't so interested in watching these idiots just put on makeup anymore. Now they want a solution for their problem because their rent is due and it must be paid. Well, how do we find a person we can trust and why can we trust him? Yeah. And the easiest answer is, well, because I've been through X, Y, and Z. Yeah. That's how you prove you can be trusted. How do you prove you have discipline? Run a marathon. Then you can prove you have discipline. So for all the people who listen to your newsletter who want a personal brand, okay, go do something extremely difficult and tell them about it and tell them what you learned and prove you did it, and then do something else and continue to compound all those difficult things in your life until you become a better version of yourself, which makes you more competent, which also amplifies your success, and everything works together, and before you know it, you have a huge personal brand. But if you don't suffer, if you don't go through pain, I don't know how you're even going to have one anymore.
Well said. Well said.
Very well
what
said.
industries would Andrew Tate get into? Obviously, if you didn't have the heat of the universe and the matrix on you, and you were the average common man trying to come up in present day, imagine you're in your, 20s, 30s, 40s, restarting, what industries would you look at as the biggest opportunity in 2020?
That's a very good question.
And beyond?
Yeah,
Insight.
I think that...
Aside from the double window industry, you're saying, right?
Yeah,
Window pane
double
industry.
glazing.
Double glazed window industry, yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like a lot of the attention geopolitically is going to be moving towards the global south and the second and third world. And I think a lot of people understand there's always been more opportunity in the second and third world than in the first world, where a lot of things are wrapped up. I think the internet is giving a lot of access to these places that perhaps didn't exist before.
Absolutely.
I think artificial intelligence involved in these places is also going to be extremely important. I feel like selling information or being the barrier to information is a fantastic way to get wealthy in the world today. There's a lot of people who want things explained to them in a very concise, very quick, very compendious way.
Right.
And if you can take information which is perhaps freely available that takes an hour to explain and explain it in 30 seconds or less, you're going to find a way to monetize that.
Right.
Especially if you can draw attention to yourself and make it clear how much time you can save people.
Right.
Especially if you could use artificial intelligence to get that 30 seconds down to 25 seconds.
Right.
There's actually endless opportunity if you're prepared to work. I don't think that the problem is a lack of opportunity, and I don't really even truly believe in saturated markets. I still think that a lot of people will look at a lot of internet businesses and go, oh, it's saturated. Let's take something that people have been doing for a while. Copywriting. Copywriting, everyone's been trying to copyright, everyone's done it. Well, I would argue that there's a bunch of people right now making money from copywriting as we speak who are idiots and who are lazy. And they're still making money. So there's no such thing as a saturated market because there's always a huge subsect of that market which
Taking advantage
are
of it.
very easy to outcompete if you try your best. And they're living from it, which means you could take most of their business. There's always a bottom percentile.
Yeah.
So I think that you should be looking
That's
to...
wise.
When I say, I've said this on many podcasts before about selling information or garnering attention, but I don't want people to confuse that with being a clown.
Sure.
Which is very different things. I think that if you're prepared to suffer and you're prepared to show that your brand or your personal brand stands up for something, and you have information which people then believe they need, you're going to be very successful in the world today.
Yeah. And I love that you bring up not only AI, but second and third world countries. Because geo arbitrage is something very huge, right?
Yep.
For example, I'm a partner in a recruiting company called A1, and we help people get people on their teams at a much more cost-effective price compared to a lot of the labor in the U.S. So people overseas, whether salespeople, admin assistants, customer support, right? There's a reason these billion-dollar companies are doing it because they see the value in it. Where do you see the labor force of second and third world countries? And using that to grow the business, what are your personal thoughts on that?
My personal thoughts are, I don't know how people in the first world aren't extremely concerned. You were being replaced by effectively foreign call centers for a while. That's something that's been going on for a while. And now we have artificial intelligence coming, and most people are so boring and uninteresting, and they have not suffered enough to be unique. Therefore, they're going to soon be replaced by a free chatbot.
Right.
It's a free chatbot that could already replace a large subsect of the population as we stand right now. Imagine we're going to be in 2 or 3 years from now. I think the average person in the Western world hasn't woken up and realized that everything's becoming more expensive and your currency's inflated and there's no chance that anyone's going to fix it for you, and they're out to replace you, people from the second and third world who will work harder than you for less money.
Do a great job.
And do a great job.
English, yeah.
Absolutely. And the robots are coming and they're going to replace you for even less than the second worlders want. And you're sitting there thinking you don't have to be exceptional and you don't have to learn to think outside the box and you don't have to suffer in any way to become a unique person, and you're just going to somehow, pay your bills? No, you're not. You're going to get destroyed.
Hey guys, real quick, do you agree with what Andrew and I are saying here about the power of hiring second and third world talent to grow your business? And want to find out more? Check the link.
And expectations, and they were no good to those in power. Because I can tell you. Yeah, work that one out. You're going to see very quickly that you're not going to exist for very long. It's and bro, when I saw that Sora AI thing, this is to all the cameramen in the room, including my guy. I saw that Sora AI thing. I was like, bro, even camera guys are going to be gone soon. Hollywood's gone. Actors are gone.
Yeah.
Script writers are gone.
Right.
Everyone's going to lose their job. Everyone. You have to be sitting there. And I don't know if the average cameraman is sitting saying, they're going to replace me with this. Maybe not now. Maybe not in a year, but certainly in 2. They're going to be able to ask a robot for the thing I would take months to film, and the robot's going to spit it out instantly. So how do I, A, integrate this with my skills so that when they want to use the robot, instead of asking the robot directly, they ask me because they can get a better result via me? How do I use AI along with my camera skills so I can continue to retain my job? Or 2, how do I diversify? What can I do that this robot can't do currently, or I don't believe it will be able to do into the future? But the average camera guy doesn't give a shit. Oh, camera guy, Sora, yeah, that's cool. Do-do-do, off the cliff. Yeah. Oh, I didn't see it coming. How did this happen to me? Why am I unemployed? You're a useless eater now. Enjoy the concentration camp. That's what's going to happen. So you have to be paying attention and thinking worst case scenario. They're coming for absolutely everybody and everything. And a lot of these personal brands, unless they're built on the back of a whole ton of suffering, I think they're going to suffer also. I don't know how they're going to have a personal brand based on just talking motivational quotes. Yeah. I haven't even done this. Someone should go to ChatGPT and say something philosophical and motivational, which inspires me. And I guarantee you can start reading things and go, crap, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
oh no, that's pretty good. It'll be scary to read.
Yeah. It's an inevitable reality that people have to learn
It's an
how to work
inevitable
with.
reality, and I don't think most people are even considering that they're replaceable or going to be replaced.
And seeing it early enough to pivot and make it work. Absolutely.
It needs to cross your mind. The one good thing about something like artificial intelligence is if you position yourself now, if you get in a position where you can use it before other people can, then people will hire you to use it for them. Work with the machines. You don't have to work against them. You can work with them. But firstly, you need to learn how to use it, and we will teach you inside of Hustles University, which you can access. But once again, most people are stupid, lazy, or arrogant. Artificial intelligence is not too hard to use. You can join our school, and we'll teach you exactly how to use it. Only 5% of people will be too stupid to do it. The majority of people are too lazy to do it. They're too lazy to join my school. They'll sit here and listen to this whole podcast, and then I'll say, I have a school which will teach you how to use the machines to print you money. And they're still too lazy to go and learn, and they're going to wonder why they're broke forever. Or they're too arrogant. I don't need the AI. Oh yeah, it's probably something that'll exist and it won't affect me. Good luck, friend.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and I love that you guys make it an affordable price point, and people can.
It's $49 a month. There's absolutely no excuse at all. The only reason people do not benefit from Hustles University and make enough money to escape the matrix is because they're lazy or arrogant.
And you guys have hundreds of thousands of members.
Hundreds of thousands of students.
Recurring revenue.
Recurring revenue. 223,000, I think, this morning.
I'll let people do the math.
Yeah,
That's
we're
awesome.
doing okay.
All right, now switching gears a little bit. You know, everyone knows about the famous story of you getting thrown in jail.
Yes.
Talk to me about that story. Did you see it coming? Were you warned? Or was it just boom, like that one day everything changes? Talk to me about the day you went to jail.
I knew they were going to try and put me in jail for something. I didn't know it was going to be as insane and crazy as it was. I had prepared for it the best I could, but I wasn't ready for the level of matrix attack I was subject to. I was hit with an Interpol red warning. Like I was hit with #1 terrorist level attack, which was very interesting. But yes, I was in Dubai. Life was relatively good. Life was too good. I said to Tristan, life is too good. Something is going to go wrong. He didn't actually agree with me. When we got to jail, he understood I was right. But we were sitting, I remember, we had this mansion, and we had haggled for this mansion. This mansion was, I think it was $100,000 a week to rent. And we rented it, and then some guy came and offered $150, and then we offered $200. And in the end, we ended up paying $250,000 a week for this mansion.
So $1 million a month.
Yeah, so we had this mansion on the Palm, because whoever this other person was
$1 million
was trying
a
to
month.
get it off us. And my brother, being my brother,
Comment
had
and let me
found
know where
these,
you're
I don't
watching
know,
from, by
20
the way.
girls from God knows where, and they're all in the pool, and we had our staff and our cigars and our shisha and our masseuses, and my Bugatti's outside, and I bought a McLaren and a Ferrari just because I was bored, and we're in Dubai, and everything's going perfectly well. And I said, Tristan, something bad has to happen soon. And he goes, why? I was like, look at this. Look where we are. Who are these girls? What are their names? Like, everything is too good.
Yeah.
Something has to go wrong. That's just how life works. He's like, what could it be? I was like, well, what's the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario is that one of us dies or gets in trouble. So we agreed. It's like, okay, for the next 6 months or so, we don't go anywhere alone. You go bathroom, I go bathroom. You go restaurant, I go restaurant. We roll as a team permanently. We're like, okay, good.
Ride or die.
Ride or die. So we had decided something bad was going to happen. And I had already told many podcasts before that and made it clear that you get 3 chances, and the second chance is put you in jail. And I was like, they're going to try and put us in jail. But how can they do it? I don't take drugs. At this point, I stopped drinking.
Had you ever taken drugs?
Never in my life. I've never tried a drug in my life.
Never
Never even
smoked
tried
weed.
weed. Never.
No
And
interest.
I know somebody that's going to sit and say caffeine and nicotine are drugs. Correct, technically. But I've never tried any illegal substance in my life. Never tried steroids, none of them. So I've never tried drugs. I've always been...
No test.
Nothing. I've always been firmly anti-drugs. Maybe
Why?
it's a good question. Maybe it was the DARE officer. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I've always been super anti-drugs. I just felt like if I try the drug and I like it, I now want the drug,
Right.
which has to be bad for my life.
Right.
And if I try the drug and I don't like it, I'll wish I never tried the drug, so why try it? So I just never tried it. Plus, I was a professional athlete for so long. And when you get to a certain age, having never done drugs, I got to 31 or 32 and I'd retired and I'd never tried drugs. Do I really need to start now? Plus, some of the drugs, speaking as somebody who's a complete layman to these things, I don't know drugs. But some of the drugs look semi-appealing, but some of them really don't. Like cocaine, I look at and I think, okay, if that gives you confidence and makes you feel hyper and happy, I can understand why that's attractive. But everyone I know who's ever done cocaine acted like an idiot, and I didn't want to be an idiot, so I've never been tempted by cocaine. And then MDMA or whatever these other ones are, ketamine or whatever, you just lose your mind and jump up and down and sweat a bunch. That doesn't look fun to me either. Right. Weed is the least appealing of all because people say, oh, but it's only weed. But why would you want a drug that makes you just want to sit and watch TV and eat food? I could do that without drugs. I could be a lazy idiot without drugs just fine. I mean, magic mushrooms, okay, I think anyone with a brain would sit and go, the idea of taking a mushroom and the whole room changing would be kind of cool, but I still refuse to do it. But the drugs that most people take, I don't even understand why they take them. Most people have such terrible choice in life, such terrible choices, that even the drugs they choose to use are crap. I don't get it. Magic mushrooms, enter an alternate reality, fine. But to smoke weed just to eat Popeye's delivery and watch TV, I do not understand. So I've never been tempted by drugs, never did it. So I couldn't understand how they were going to put us in jail, but I knew it was coming. We left London, flew to England. I did Piers Morgan, called him an idiot. Left London. He is. Left London, and I was deciding, do I go from London directly to Dubai, or do I come back here to pack a suitcase? And I flew back to Romania to pack a suitcase. I was here for 8 hours, called Greta Thunberg stupid with the pizza, and then got picked up in the morning. My jet was on the runway, fueled, and the police picked me up about an hour before I was supposed to go to the airport. So they had been intending on arresting me for a while, I understand.
What time was it that they came and got you?
5 in the morning.
Were you sleeping?
I was asleep, and you know, when I have armed security at the house, and when I heard my door being busted, my instant reaction after being woke up, when I heard my door getting busted open, it was like, they've killed my guards. Because I didn't know if it was the police or the other team.
Right.
And when I got my weapon and they bust in the door, and obviously there's a bunch of them, they're all masked up with shotguns, etc. When I first saw the police, it was genuine relief. I thought it could have been I'd rather the police than crazy Albanians.
Right.
I really thought it might be the other team. So when I first saw the police, I was like, thank God it's you. What do you want? And they're like, oh, get on the ground. I'm like, yeah, I'll get on the ground, whatever. Like, what do you want? Yeah. And then I worked out I was going to jail for human trafficking and all this insanity. And I've told the story a bunch of times, but I don't think I took it that seriously for the first 3 or 4 days.
And Tristan was there with you.
Tristan was with me. When we first went to jail, we were separate, but during the arresting process, when they were searching our house and stealing all of our stuff and taking our cars and taking all our diamond watches and everything, my brother and I just kept looking at each other like what is going, this is some sort of mistake, but this is garbage, we'll clear it up quickly. Yeah. And we learned obviously that wasn't the case, and they dragged us to jail and they threw us in separate jail cells, and because of the time of year it was just before New Year's, so the translators weren't working. So all the paperwork was in Romanian. I didn't even know why I was in jail. I just knew I was in jail for human trafficking. I didn't know who, I didn't know when, I didn't know anything for almost a whole full week till I found out the true insanity that they had stuck on me. And I knew it was a Matrix attack, but I guess to this day, even now, I'm still kind of impressed how they've managed to construct such a garbage narrative out of me and my brother telling people we know what time to do TikTok to be popular. I mean, that's crazy. But that's how the Matrix operates, right?
And they didn't even show you, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the paperwork when you went to jail was like not even in English.
Oh, it's all in Romanian. Yeah.
So they intentionally did it in a way to minimize your ability to navigate.
Well, the truth is this. I don't think most people at home understand, especially if you're a man, that all men are guilty all of the time. Every man in this room is guilty of a sexual crime. Because the sexual crimes are now so subjective and they're so open to interpretation that if you upset the government and they want to attack you, they will put you in jail for one of those crimes because it damages your reputation. And a lot of these crimes are so subjective that it's impossible to even quantify what they are anymore. They can call you emotionally coercive. What does that mean? That means you're nice to a girl so that she does something for you. So if you say, please, baby, can you make me a coffee? You were emotionally coercive. In fact, I mean, that's what they could do if they wanted to. Sure. And when you understand that they use the process as a punishment, I say this to people and they say, but they can't put you in jail for asking your wife to make you a coffee. I said, no. They probably won't put you in jail with that, but they will accuse you of being emotionally coercive. They will arrest you. They will put you in the media. They will slander your name. They will make you pay millions of dollars of legal fees. They will make you waste years of your life on bail. And then you get to walk. Oh, great. Lucky you. The damage has been done. The process is the punishment. And any man who's living any type of life now in the world doesn't understand that he's permanently guilty of sexual crimes, because all of these things now have been extrapolated to subjectivity, and women are living in a society where they have all the power but no responsibility at all for their own actions. That a woman can go through life and use her own agency to make her own adult decisions, but if she regrets those decisions years later, she can find a man to blame, and that man's going to get wrecked. You see it endlessly. Mia Khalifa did porn, had sex with hundreds of men, made a bunch of money, and now that she regrets doing porn, she blames her manager for tricking her into doing porn. And now it's a man's fault somehow. And that's the world we live in. So, but I'll be honest, I'm a little bit mad at myself for not seeing it coming, because before they hit me with this Matrix attack, I really did consider, understanding they're going to try and put me in jail, that they're going to try and attack me with sexual crimes of some sort, but I couldn't work out how they were going to do it.
Right.
And then they made up the absolute garbage they did. Their intention was to put me in jail, drum up a real case, knowing that their initial case was garbage, and they failed to do that. They called 2,000 women who knew me, and none of them said anything bad about me, and it's all failed, and they're forced to proceed with their first initial accusation, is that I told girls what hours to do TikTok. And here we are in the middle of the judicial process with it being thrown away little by little. But the process is the punishment. I've still been in jail for 3 entire months in a Romanian dungeon. I was still locked in my house for 5 months. I still haven't seen my cars or my diamonds or my gold or my bank accounts ever since.
How many cars did they seize?
16, I think, which is upsetting because it's almost 20% of my collection. Very upsetting. Upsetting.
How many cars total?
I have 59 now.
59.
Crazy.
No, sorry. I had 16, and now I have none. Let me get that correct for the cameras. But yeah, so the process itself is the punishment. You still spend millions and millions of dollars in legal fees.
Right.
They don't care. They don't care if you're innocent or guilty. They have no interest in that. Their goal is to teach you a lesson and to punish you. I think anyone at home who doesn't agree with the following statement is an idiot. If I wasn't so monumentally famous, this wouldn't have happened to me. This is a simple statement. If I wasn't so well known, there is 0% chance the Romanian state would have tried to make an example of me via proxy by putting me in jail for telling people what time to do TikTok. They did it because I am famous, proving in and of itself that it's not about law and order, it's about damaging my influence because it's a Matrix attack. That's all it's about. And anyone who thinks that the judicial system at the highest levels has anything to do with justice is again a fool, because it isn't. It's about damaging influence, and it's a big theater show. I think there's another really famous person who's going through a bunch of garbage legal cases right now. What's his name? He was
Trump?
president or something. Can't remember. But he's being hit with endless garbage, and they're just wrecking him time and time again. Is that about law?
Right before the election, too.
Yeah, interesting. Is that about law? Is that about what's right and wrong? No, it's about damaging a person's influence. The judicial system is a weapon. The goal of a judicial system is to preserve a degree of sanctity amongst the populace and to make sure that certain narratives are enforced amongst the population. So the whole point of a judicial system is that people wake up underneath that system and feel safe, or believe in the government, or don't act completely crazy because of the law and order. So by extension, if you have people at the top who are disrupting the narrative and causing disruption to the population by making people think things they're not supposed to think, or say things they're not supposed to say, it is the job of the legal system to stop those people, right? For the same reason you wouldn't allow somebody to start a cult which had heinous intentions. You don't want an influential person to stand up and talk against your narratives, which you're trying to instill to poison the minds of the children of the people who live inside of your country. Now, I know what they're doing is evil. We're not talking about right and wrong here. We're talking about the goal of the legal system. The goal of the legal system is to preserve the government's control and society's functioning. That's the whole point of it. So if they're trying to do evil things and I'm talking against it, even though I'm in the right, it is the legal system's job to deal with me. That's the whole point of the legal system. To make people, the legal system is supposed to make you act how they want you to act. Don't speed, don't kill. Cool, we all agree with those two. We don't agree with the don't talk and don't think part. But they want you to do all of it. And if you don't, you're punished with the legal system. So anyone who sits and says, oh, it's about law is a fool, because that's not what it's about at the top. It's about damaging your influence, because if you have a massive amount of influence, you're a threat to them. You're a threat to their narratives. You're a threat to the information war. And that's what we're living in. We're living in an information war.
So 2 quick questions as it relates to the day you get thrown in prison. Obviously, when the cops bust down the door, it's you and Tristan there. Do you remember the last thing you told Tristan, or the last exchange?
It wasn't just me and Tristan. There was also
Ladies.
some girls in the house. And they busted in for human trafficking. There's girls in the house, my brother's girlfriend, my girlfriend, whatever, they're in the house with us. They didn't ask the girls how they are. They didn't say, girls, do you need help? They didn't try and take the girls away, nothing. You know the first thing they said to me? Where's the Bugatti? First words they said to me.
No way.
I swear to God.
That's
because their
crazy.
intention was to make an example of me, and that was symbolic of my success. At the time, the Bugatti was everywhere, so they wanted to put it on a truck and say, ha, we took it off him. If they cared about human trafficking, why didn't they ask the girls how they were? Why did they drag girls from bed and put them in handcuffs by their hair? Why beat a bunch of women up? I thought we're worried about women here. I thought I'm a misogynist and it's human trafficking. Now you got a bunch of women and you're hurting them. Whole thing's garbage. Whole thing's garbage. They knew it was garbage. Everybody knows it's garbage. The intention was pure. The intention was to take all my stuff, make an example of me, put the Bugatti on a trailer, put it all over the news, ha ha ha, no one's more powerful than the government, don't talk against the state, throw me in jail. Once I'm in jail, call everyone who knows me, drum up a real case, and screw me over. They failed at the last part of that, drum up a real case. Their current case isn't a case. They know it's not a case, and they're forced to see it through now because they couldn't find anything else. Which is also why it's so important that you live pure if you're going to talk against authority, because they're going to come for you. And they're going to come for you for everything you've ever done. Every woman you've ever slept with, every loan you've ever taken, every sniff of cocaine you thought nobody would know about, which is on some CCTV camera you didn't spot. All of it is going to come out. All of it. So next time you're sitting there thinking, I want to have an opinion, but at the same time, I want to do these haram things or do these bad things and no one's going to know. They are going to know. That's why it's so important you live pure. I'm sure they're very, very disappointed that they didn't find the things they were looking for on me. And anyone who attacks me and my character also isn't intelligent enough to understand that I've been examined by multiple federal agencies at the highest possible level for over 3 or 4 years. And what have they found? Me making misogynistic jokes on YouTube? Oh, well, throw me in jail. They didn't find anything weird. They didn't find any pedophilia on my laptop. Didn't find any drugs in my house. Nothing. What did they find? Andrew said women can't park. Oh, well, you should go to jail. And there's people so stupid that they'll buy into that narrative. No one has a brain enough to sit there and go, they've hit this guy. England's tried, America's tried, Romania's now trying. They've gone through his entire life, all of his electronics. They've been spying on him for years. Everything he says, all of it. And what they found is old YouTube videos.
Yeah, that is crazy.
That's the open and shut case that I'm a bad guy. I would argue if you were to get most men on the street and go through their lives and find all their deepest, darkest secrets, you'd find a lot worse than what I've done. Maybe not even worse legally, but worse reputationally. You'd find him begging for some woman to take him back. You'd find him with a tranny in Thailand. Something weird. What have they found on me? Nothing. And there's still idiots out there who don't understand that. So the legal system's job is to keep society functioning. And if they want society to function with everybody afraid to talk and homosexuals in charge, and you have to sit there and allow them to psyop your kids, well then I am a target of the legal system because I'm against their narratives. I'm a fugitive. I'm a thought criminal. The reason they hate me so much is because my influence is massive. Your ability to talk freely is directly correlated to your insignificance. A lot of people sit and say, oh, we live in a free country. You can say what you want. Well, you can because no one listens.
Interesting.
So we'll start talking large enough for people to listen to you, and you'll realize that you're not allowed to do what you want. And this whole guise of freedom we live under is a scam anyway. None of it's real. You're free to do the unimportant things. Sure, you're free to chop your balls off. Congratulations. But you're not free to keep them. You're not free to keep your balls and stand up for what you believe in and protect your family. You're not free to do that. But you're free to chop them off, which is why they come along and say, oh, look, we're a free society. You can chop your balls off. You say, well, I don't want to do that. I want to keep them, thank you very much. I don't want you to try and convince my son to do it either. Then you're going to realize that it's all a scam. We live in a fish tank, and you can swim around, and the walls are glass, So you don't really understand you're in a jail because there's glass walls and you can see outside of the glass and you see all this big, beautiful room and you think everything's fine. But if you try and go too far, you start bumping up against the glass wall. You start to go too far, all of a sudden your banks don't work. All of a sudden you're dangerous for any service provider to allow. I'm banned from Uber. They think I'm going to, get an Uber and convince the driver? Yeah. What am I going to do? Hey, bro, the Matrix. And he's going to tell his next passenger? Like, why would you ban me from Uber? Not that I took Uber anyway.
Right.
When I got banned from everything, you know the biggest try-hard loser company on earth? Airbnb. I'm going to say it now. Airbnb are losers, here's why. When I was banned, the day they deleted all my banks, they deleted all my things on the same day. So on the same day, I was banned from Gmail, Stripe, Facebook, Instagram, 5 or 6 different banks, Uber, like every app on my phone just started logging out.
The same day you got arrested?
No, this was actually during my first cancellation.
What was the time difference between the money and account cancellation and then being thrown in prison?
August is when all of my apps stopped working.
August 2023.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I went to Dubai.
Okay.
And then when I left Dubai, I was arrested and they took all of my physical assets.
And how long was that after?
I was arrested in December.
So you kind of saw the writing on the wall a little bit.
I went to Dubai for work and
a little play?
yeah, I mean, I have good friends in Dubai and I like the place. And I went there for work and I'd just been canceled. So I knew that they weren't happy with me. I didn't expect to get picked up so soon. I thought it would take a year or so or a couple years. I thought I had more time to prepare for it. But yeah, I mean, it's when they arrested, they took all of my physical assets. But when all of my apps stopped working, when they deleted me off absolutely everything. Actually, can I say this part? We'll save this one. I'll save that story for when I'm no longer in the judicial system.
Sure. Part 2.
Part 2.
We'll do part 2.
And that's another thing that's very frustrating for me is there's so much I know I have to be careful what I still say because I'm still at mercy to the Romanian judicial system. But yeah, I did find the Uber thing interesting, and as for the Airbnb thing. So when they deleted me from everything at once, I got an email from Airbnb. The same day I was getting cancellation emails from everyone. Airbnb emailed me, says, sorry, Mr. Tate, because of your views and our community standards and our guidelines on inclusivity and blah, 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 you're no longer welcome to use Airbnb, and they canceled me. And I thought, I don't even have an Airbnb account. So I looked it up and I realized that I was wrong. I did make an Airbnb account 4 years prior
ago.
and had never stayed in Airbnb ever. Never even stayed in one, never even booked one.
Right.
And on the cancellation day, they jumped on in and stopped me from their service. Sorry, Mr. Dick, because of inclusivity. And I felt like replying, I've never even booked a fucking house through you clowns.
Yeah.
And you're coming along trying to cancel me. So I don't know, I can't tell you exactly how it works. I've heard theories that it's a cascading effect. I've heard theories that after one company cancels you publicly and the media announces that cancellation, the other companies don't want the smoke of not canceling you.
Oh, yeah.
And I've heard other theories that there's actually someone higher up who makes the call and then boom.
Pulling strings, yeah.
I guess we're going to find out. But it's certainly interesting. And I don't think most people at home understand. Imagine opening your phone and every app just logging out. You want to talk, people say, oh, the Matrix, is it real? If you want proof the Matrix is real, the day you open up your phone and everything starts closing down, you're going to see the Matrix is very real.
Wow. Now, talk to me about the first moment you guys walk into a jail. Had you been into any kind of prison or jail before?
I've been arrested in England before.
For?
I was arrested on some garbage, and I was only held for a day or so. But
First day in jail in Romania, what was it like? Walk us through. What's going through your mind? You walk into the cell. What happens?
jail is just condensed life. You need to be strong physically so no one else picks on you, and you need to be strong mentally so you don't pick on yourself. And I was also pretty understanding that if you show respect to people, they're going to show respect back to you. I wasn't scared. Part of me was a little bit nervous, but my genuine concern was for everybody else on the outside. I know everyone was worried about me, but I was worried about all the people I have to pay and my kids and my families and my mother and everyone else and all the heat they're getting and the smoke they're getting and them all being upset. The first day I walked in there was still a chance that I would be out relatively soon. So I thought that this is a temporary hiccup and it's garbage and it's something I have to deal with quickly. It was only probably after a full week that it really began to settle in that I'm going to be stuck there for a long time. And I was hearing a lot of horror stories from people around me who had been stuck in the system for years.
And they gave you no context of how long you'd be there or nothing?
Everyone was telling me I was going to be there for years.
Really?
Other guys in my room when I first went in there, all of them had been there for between 1.5 and 4 years without trial.
And when you walk in there, is everybody like, holy shit, Andrew Tate's in the house? Or was there not that kind of reaction?
They knew who I was, but not really. I think a lot of them, after a lot of time in jail, maybe not in a Western jail, but in a jail in this part of the world, you lose a lot of your, what's the word I'm looking for?
Awareness? Perspicacious?
Sentience. You lose a lot of your sentience because the only way to survive it is to just be half asleep.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're kind of numb.
And not even asleep physically, but just mentally half asleep. They were like, "Oh, Andrew Tate." I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't. No one cared.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, just like welcome to the club. You got shafted by the system.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because systems are imperfect because they're run by people and people are fallible.
Right.
And of course, when you call the police after someone's committed a murder, you want that murderer to go to jail, and the judicial system does its job. Some people who do bad things are in jail, which is what you want. But there's also a bunch of people in jail who are just in jail for some garbage. And of course, the person you're asking why they're there, are you hearing the real version of events? Who knows?
Sure.
But in every single jail on earth, I would argue there's a percentage of the population who shouldn't be there. There's at least between 1%, perhaps up to 30, 40, 50% of men sitting in a room stuck there who shouldn't be in jail if all was fair in the world, and the world's not fair. And after I started to realize I might be there for years because a lot of the people in there, some of them, and I won't tell their stories out of respect, were there who had done nothing wrong and they'd been stuck for years. My concerns weren't for me, my concerns were for my empire on the outside, because as a man, you have a lot of people who depend on you.
What were the conditions like inside there?
They were exactly how you'd imagine a Romanian jail to be. I mean, Romania is technically a poor country. If you actually ever visit here, you'll see a lot of fast cars and Lamborghinis and nightclubs and bottles, and there's a big wealth divide. There's a lot of money here. But technically, on paper, in general, it's one of the poorest countries in Europe. How can a politician justify to his constituents that he wants to send money to improve the jail system when they have medical problems with their healthcare system and the roads have holes? They have other issues to fix. The pensions need paying. I don't think they've put any money into that jail since it was built during communism. And a jail in communism is a dungeon to go and die in. And there's also the starkest reality was that there is no mental health divide between the criminal justice system and the mental health system in poorer countries. It's probably not Romania, it's probably most poor countries. In a poor country, they don't have the money to work out if you are a criminal or if you're mentally ill. You're just not doing what you're supposed to do and you're a menace to society, so you all go to jail. So there's a huge mental health problem, and I'd argue it's probably like that in a lot of poor countries.
Was there multiple people in the cell with you, or were you solo before being Tristan in the cell?
So it was, at first my brother and I were separate. I was in the room with 3 other guys, 3 other men. And my concern initially was to make sure there was going to be no physical confrontation, but I'm pretty good at picking up vibes, and I understood pretty quickly that I'd be okay. Tristan had a semi-different experience. And then after 2 weeks, I was put in the same cell as Tristan. We were put together, and we were put together so they could bug the cell and listen to us.
Oh, and you guys, of course, knew that.
Yeah, we knew that instantly.
You're probably fucking around.
But we were, yeah, of course, but we were glad that they put us in there. And I've told my story about Ricky Tan and Rush Hour and how we started talking about all these imaginary crimes. And we did it, one was to upset them, but 2, our logic was if we make them feel like they're getting something out of this, they'll keep us in the same room. And it's better. So let's keep
That's
alluding
genius, man.
to these crime bosses in Hong Kong. And we kept describing the Rush Hour plots. So they're listening in, calling the Hong Kong authorities probably. Yeah. But I mean, I'll never forget the day they told me I was going to leave jail. I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget that emotion.
Well, in there, I know there's a famous question where someone said, Andrew, did you cry in jail?
Yeah.
And you said?
I said, tears ran down my face, but I did not cry.
And what did you mean by that?
Because it's a unique feeling of frustration. Unless you've ever been in that scenario, you never would have experienced it in your life. You're put in a room, the door is locked, okay. And for the first few days, you're in jail, whatever. But after a couple of weeks, you just door and you're like, how can I not leave this room? Why can't I go outside of this door? It's in all the other scenarios in your life where perhaps you're put in a room, you have to argue with your parents, or you've got a job and you can't finish till a certain time, but you could leave the room. If you actually wanted to walk out, you could walk out. There may be consequences, but you could.
Sure.
Yeah, but in jail, you actually can't.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating. And I think my brother actually did better than me, because my brother, the whole 3 months in jail, didn't make a single phone call.
Wow.
Didn't call anyone once. Didn't care. I was calling people, trying to check on them, making sure that everything was okay. And I thought that would make my life better and everyone else's life better, but it did the opposite, because it made me very concerned. And it's also amazing the difference between men and women, because I'd call like my guys or men who I rely on, or people who I do business with, whatever. And they'd be like, don't worry, we got it. You just worry about you. We got it, we got it, we got it. You'd call the women, and the women in your life obviously have been depending on you while you're free. And they just start getting upset, crying. Oh, but what if you're there for years, and how will I pay for this, or what's going to happen about this, or what if, the kid, and da-da-da. And all of their negative emotion, they're not cerebral enough to go, he's using his 20 minutes jail phone call. Yeah. And instead of making him happy, I'm just going to trauma dump him. Mm-hmm. And it's quite a surreal experience to be in a jail cell, counting the cockroaches on the roof, on a broken payphone, trying to convince some girl in the free world that she's going to be okay. you're playing the other side. You're like, don't worry, it's going to be fine. You're the therapist in the jail, which shows the reality of masculine versus feminine when things get hard anyway. But that day I was particularly upset, but it wasn't about me. I never felt sorry for myself at any point. I never looked around at any point and said, oh, this is unfair. I can't believe this happened to me. Even though it is unfair, and even though it is a matrix attack, that's not a paradigm I operate under. I only looked around me and said, I need to get out of here because there's other things I have to do, and I'm worried about everyone else. I really wasn't that concerned. If you would have said to me when I was in jail, Andrew, you're going to be here for 10 years, but X amount of $1 million a month will be generated, and these people will be paid for, and this is the life they're all going to live, that I really would have been like, okay, and I would have done my time. It's concern for other people as opposed to over myself. I wasn't worried about me so much. And because truthfully, although I did nothing wrong, or that's incorrect. Even though I was thrown in jail for a reason that didn't exist, for a crime that didn't happen, all in all, I feel like there's no light without dark in the universe. If I were to say to you, it's a genuine question, if I were to say to you at the age of 18, when you were carrying, let's say you had a job like me, or I'd say to myself, I'm carrying boxes of fish in a fish market at 7 in the morning for $40 a day. And they were to say, Andrew, you're going to become one of the most well-known people on the planet, and you're going to stay in a mansion in Dubai that's $1 million a month, and you're going to have all these beautiful children with all these beautiful women, and you're going to drive a Bugatti and have 59 cars, and you're going to fly on private jets, and you're going to have this big mansion in Romania, and you're going to have all these things.
Crazy.
But at some point, they're going to throw you in jail for no reason. I would have signed that piece of paper instantly. I would have taken that contract. Who wouldn't? You have to be a total pussy to not take that deal. So, all in all, there's no light without dark. So I didn't feel sorry for myself. I understand you can't shine bright in the world without casting a shadow. And the shadow is where your enemies are going to attack from. And sometimes they'll get lucky and they'll hit you with a side swipe and you'll fall over and you're going to get back up. I never felt sorry for myself. It was the monumental responsibilities I had on my back and everyone else's panic around me. And you can also extrapolate that out towards life in general, where when I was only talking to Tristan or I was only talking to the strong people in my life, I felt fine. But as soon as I talked to someone who was weak, I felt bad. And you can also use that outside of jail.
Yeah, the power of environment.
100%.
Quality friends around you, quality support system.
And your circle.
Absolutely.
I tweeted the other day, and it got me a lot of heat. I tweeted that male therapy is your friends just calling you a pussy until you don't mention it anymore. And everyone was like, that's not therapy, and everyone had a mental breakdown. But if you go to your boys and like, oh, she left me, don't be gay, get over it. Eventually you'll stop saying it, and eventually you'll get over it. But if you sit and you say she left me or whatever bad happened, and they sit there and they cry back and everyone's sad, that it drags you down the rabbit hole. So it's also very important that you create your reality so you're strong as possible. And I believe that your friends in a masculine environment, the primary objective of your friends should be I like to say to my friends that if I'm with my guys, my enemy feels harmless. My enemy doesn't feel capable when I'm with my team. Now, my enemy is still very capable, but they feel less capable, which is stupid because my enemy is the government. And the government are the biggest gangsters on the planet. They can kill me, and they can still throw my ass in jail. But when I'm with my guys, I'm not afraid of it. Even now, post-jail, I live with all my best friends. We have this big house, and we live together. And every day we laugh. Are they coming today? Are we going to jail today? Who knows? Jail bag's packed. It's all a big joke. If I was living with just my woman and my kid, I'd be far more nervous and scared. Are they going to bust in the door? Are they going to kick my kid? She's young. Are they going to, the woman's scared. I'd go to bed worried each night. But when you're with your guys, you feel invincible. I think that's something inside of men that we've evolved to have. It's something biological inside of us. Because when enough men are in a large group, we'll charge at gunfire.
Yeah, camaraderie.
Yeah, if everyone starts going over the top screaming, you'll jump over the top and scream. It's something inside of us. So that was the thing that was interesting about jail. You learn how, I knew I had massive responsibilities in life, and that was no realization to me. But the realization was that even in your most difficult periods of your life, you're still a man, and the people who rely on you are still going to rely on you, and you're still going to have to find a way to perform. And I did it because I was prepared for it, and all the bills were paid, and everything was fine. But it was very interesting that I'd use my jail calls trying to cheer people up as opposed to being cheered up.
Yeah. How did your brotherhood with Tristan grow in jail?
We were in a cell, the same cell, I think, for 81 days. And the cell was, when I say tiny, imagine a bathroom. It was about the size of a bathroom. And we never argued once about anything.
Is there beds in there? Is it
There was,
cockroaches?
yes, that's right. So we had a bunk bed, and
Who got the top bunk?
no, we had two. There was 4 beds. There was 2 sets of bunk beds, but
Gotcha.
but when they put us in the bugged cell, they left 2 empty. So we both had these bottom
Gotcha.
bunks, and then our free space was around the size of a bathroom in general, and it was cockroaches, and there was a hole in the floor, and that was it. And we had a tiny window. And that was the experience. And
So you literally go from like Dubai, mansion, Bugatti on the thing, yachts, girls, the whole thing, to like cockroaches and double bunk beds.
are I lucky? No, but I'm saying that without hyperbole. Are I fortunate? Maybe this is the wrong way to frame it, but I believe it is the best way to look at the scenario. I think that makes me hyper fortunate. Wouldn't it be beautiful? Wouldn't it be amazing to be in the Sahara Desert and be extremely hot and dehydrated and almost about to sunburn, and then in a flash, instantly, in an ice cold Nordic pool with unlimited fresh water? Imagine the change in circumstance, the juxtaposition between the two, how crazy it would be. If you take a plane between the two, you lose the effect. It needs to be like teleportation, the instantness. People get out of the sauna and they jump into an ice bath for a reason. I literally went from, yes, private jets and Bugattis and being the most famous man in the world and living in a mansion, to that dungeon so quickly. And I feel like that puts me in a very fortunate position because it allowed me to recalibrate. And it's certainly a unique experience of life. And what are you looking at life for? Are you looking at life to be as comfortable as possible, or are you looking at life for the challenges and for the stories? I would argue that if Tristan went to jail without me, I would have been very jealous when he got out.
Ride or die.
One, because I wanted to protect him, but 2, if he told me what he went through, I would have been jealous of him. Now, obviously, there would have been no animosity because we're brothers, but I would have been like, wow, that sounds cool. That sounds fun. There's some people who want to go through life and be as comfortable as possible, but if you're the kind of person who wants to challenge yourself, I'd argue that being thrown in a Romanian dungeon is a challenge. Being thrown off the back of living the most luxurious life that money can afford is a challenge. Trying to find a way to escape and preserve your mental rigidity is a challenge. And I'm very glad God gave it to me. And I'll say this right now here on camera, part of me, a huge percentage of me, will be disappointed if I don't go back. And I know that sounds crazy, because I feel like I don't care about what the media are going to say. And I know I've done nothing wrong, and God knows I've done nothing wrong. I'm not interested in any of that. But when I'm 70, will it be cooler if I had to go back and do 5 years in the dungeon, or will it be cooler if I spent those 5 years flying around on jets and sleeping with beautiful women and being Mr. Rich? I mean, okay, maybe the Mr. Rich stories will be cool. I'm not going to complain. They'll be fun. But part of me will always be in the back of my mind for the next few years when after I bust this case, which I believe is going to happen. I don't think I'm going to go back. If I was in jail, would my life story be cooler? Would the lessons be worth more than what I'm currently doing? And maybe that makes me insane. Maybe that makes me nuts. I don't know. But
okay.
I'm really not afraid of it. It's up to God, and God will decide, and Allah is the best of planners. Perhaps I learned all the important lessons I needed to learn in those days. And if I haven't, he's going to put me back in there, and we're going to find out.
And there's a beautiful saying, too, in Islam, as I know you're Muslim, where God doesn't put anything on the soul that it can't bear.
Absolutely.
And so there's a divine meaning in it. Obviously, time will tell. But I want to ask you this, too. And this is really interesting before I forget, is when you were in prison, I heard someone ask you something to the effect of, how did you spend time? What did you interest in do? And you said that you did like X amount of push-ups.
Yeah.
What did you do to be as productive as possible in there? Whether you and Tristan or solo, what did you focus on? What was your mental frame of mind?
It was fantastic for so many things, jail. Mm-hmm. Jail was fantastic for training.
How many push-ups did you do in there?
I did 1,000 push-ups a day.
Every day?
Every day.
Anything else in the workout?
I did 1,000 push-ups a day. I did like 300 or between 300 to 400 squats a day. And then I had no weights and we had no access to a gym. So I had a 6-pack of 2-liter water, which weighed around 12 kilos. Mm-hmm. And usually it'd be around 4:30 by the time I'd finished the push-ups, I remember. And between 4:30 and dinner, so that's 2 hours, at 6:30 we got fed, I'd lift the water above my head over and over and over and over again, as many times as I could.
So you literally got stronger mentally and physically in jail?
Absolutely. And it was fantastic for training. I kind of miss that single-mindedness I had in jail. Now I don't do 1,000 push-ups a day, not because I can't, but because I have things to do.
Right.
And I have work, and my phone's ringing, and I've got things to do on my laptop. But back then, it's like, I'm going to do 1,000 push-ups, and I have nothing else to do. That single-mindedness was actually quite beautiful, because in the world we live in today, we're all permanently distracted. At least half of the time, at least a fraction of you is always thinking, what's on my phone? What's that person doing? What's this girl doing? Or what's this work I have to do? Yeah. But when you're in jail, after a while, you lose access to anything outside of your immediate. So you focus on the immediate. It's like going back in time. Mm-hmm. You know, do you remember the 90s? You remember? Maybe I'm an old man. The early 2000s, before we lived inside the Matrix and the metaverse, when you were just in a room with someone and that was it. Mm-hmm. I had conversations in jail. Me and my brother would talk for days about the same subject. We've never spoken like that since. Mm. There's been time, I've said this to Tristan only a few days ago. 2 days ago, we were having a cigar in the cigar room, and we were talking about something. I was like, we talked about this for half an hour. We would have talked about this for days in jail, weeks perhaps. So much magic is lost outside of a jail cell. So what a blessing from God that I got to experience that for those 3 months and be cerebral enough to retain those lessons, or at least be aware now of what I'm missing in the real world. Because you don't realize what you're missing until you're put in a position like that. And what suffering did I have to go through to get such a blessing from God? Well, I had to deal with the media saying bad things about me, but I don't care. I genuinely don't care. They can print bad things about me for the rest of my life. I'm not going to shut up. I don't care. I had to deal with the cockroaches, and the bed bugs and the spiders, which I must admit was probably the worst thing about jail. And I had to deal with some nightmares when I got out. But all in all, and I was saying this to Tristan in jail, we were sitting there, I was saying, we'd often have conversations when we were at our lowest, when we felt particularly depressed. We'd say, let's name things worse than jail.
Ooh, frame control.
Yeah, because we're supposed to be in a bad situation.
The worst of the worst.
What's worse than jail? That can happen in everyday life. Well, cancer is worse than jail. A car crash is worse than jail. Getting drafted into a war you don't want to fight in is worse than jail. I argued. We started finding, and over time, we ended up with a huge list of things that everyone suffers from every single day that are worse than a jail cell. Yeah.
There's a beautiful quote by Tony Robbins. He talks about nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that we give it. And so the fact that you guys were giving it an empowering meaning, you own the narrative, it didn't own you.
Oh, absolutely. My enemies think they damaged me by putting me in jail. All they've done is make me more powerful and give me a story and give me an experience and make me more aware and acutely interested in ensuring that I am, I wouldn't say present, because I've always understood that I'm, semi-distracted and busy people always are. But I kind of feel like, would I be crazy to call it health retreat, you know, like kind of like a mindfulness retreat.
Yeah.
I went to a mindfulness retreat, and because of the, and we'll say the insects were nature. I went to experience nature in a mindfulness retreat with my best friend and brother, and there was no distractions. They only allowed me to be distracted for 20 minutes every 2 days with the jail phone, and besides that, I had to focus on what I was doing at the time. Lucky me.
How did your
And I kind of want to go back.
How did your faith grow? Your relationship with God. I know that you also, in recent years, have reverted back to Islam and being Muslim. When did that occur specifically, and what led to that series of events? Did jail play a role in that?
I always had massive respect for Islam, and I'm very careful what I say because I don't want to offend any other religions, because I think that anybody who is living true to God and they believe is the correct religion is somebody who I respect, but I feel like it's the last true religion on earth. In the West, at least, if you look at Christianity, it has no meaning anymore. I don't know how you can be a true person of religious conviction and faith and then call yourself a Christian without feeling not embarrassed, but at least angered.
Within the context of not the religion itself, but how it's implemented and how it's, right?
They stick up for what they believe in. If you don't stand for something, then you don't believe in anything. If you don't have hard barriers, if you're not prepared to say no to certain things and certain ideas, then you don't believe in anything. Islam is simple. Book says no, haram. Next.
Yeah.
That's it.
Haram,
and Christianity is super subjective now. And there are things that everybody knows go against Christian teachings, and they know go against the Bible, but the church and the culture of Christianity, when we were talking about culture earlier, proves how important it is so accepting of everything that they have no firm barriers and they don't believe in anything anymore. And the point of a religion is to have restrictions. That's where the faith comes in. If you can do whatever you want, then it's not a religion, is it? Yeah. And if you'll ignore all the rules of your own holy book, then it's not a religion either. And I just feel like the fact even that Christianity is so openly mocked and Christians don't stand up and defend it is, again, proof that the religion has lost a lot of its power. And I think my respect for Islam is in the very simple fact that they stick up for what they believe in and they mean what they say and they refuse to be mocked. And I don't know, you can apply that from a religious perspective, but you can also apply that from a general perspective of life as a man. I think any man with self-respect doesn't want to be mocked, and he doesn't want his views to be mocked about anything. And if you're going to believe in a religion, you should at least respect it. And I respect their rigidity. And I respect that people treat them in a certain way because their religious convictions are true. We can go down the argument of which religion is true, which religion is right. But I think we could all agree, and even Christians will agree this with me, that it's a sad state of affairs where Christians will allow their prophet or Jesus to be openly mocked and they won't say anything about it or do anything about it and just allow it to happen within Christian nations. I think we can all agree that's sad. And it's beautiful to be part of a religion where you don't have to suffer that embarrassment, truthfully.
How did Islam change you personally? Because I'm sure there's been an internal shift, right? Not just the religion, but
it gave me a lot of clarity, and it gave me a lot of peace, and it confirmed a lot of things I already knew were right and already knew were wrong. Reverting to Islam didn't make me say, okay, this is now wrong and I used to believe it's right. There wasn't very many of those. It was far more, I always knew this was wrong. And now I'm glad I get to read the Quran and be told a new reason why it is wrong. And it gave me a lot of peace, because you have to live for something, and everybody's trying to live for something outside of God. And truthfully, you're going to get to a point in your life sooner or later where you realize nothing else matters. And you're going to come to a conclusion, especially if you're monumentally successful, that all the things you think you own, you don't even own, and that you don't have control or power over very much. And the only thing that's going to give you true satisfaction in this world is waking up and knowing that you're doing the right thing because it's what you believe is right, and you have the faith and the courage to continue to do that despite your persecution. And ultimately, if what you are doing is trying to take care of your children and preserve society so they have a world to grow up in which is worth living in, that is the will of God and the act of God. And I think that having peace and clarity in regards to knowing I'm living for the right thing was the biggest change. I wouldn't say it changed many of my views. It just made me feel more at peace with the suffering that comes with doing the right thing, if that makes sense.
And you know, it's interesting because I'm actually Muslim as well. And I want to ask, it's very interesting that you use the language as revert to Islam versus converted to Islam.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I know I understand the answer, but I'm curious if you could elaborate because I'm sure there's people wondering. So why do you use the language of revert to Islam versus convert to Islam?
Yeah, I was corrected on this, and someone said to me that
Andrew Tate was corrected?
Yeah, I've been, bro. my whole life has been corrections. I'm just good at listening. You know, I just pay attention. But we all start off as Muslims, is the intention, right? You can probably explain it even better than I can.
Yeah.
But and especially when it comes to the Islamic journey, I'm paying a lot of attention and I'm learning as much as possible because there's a lot to learn, especially when you're not born into the faith.
Right.
There's certainly a lot of studying to be done. But it's interesting when you said Andrew Tate was corrected. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to believe the only reason I'm so good at trying to make people understand what I think and teach people things is because I was such a good student for so long. I spent most of my life listening. One of the weirdest things about the internet is I see all these 21, 22, 23-year-old kids talking about how life should work and
They have it all figured out.
Yeah, they all figured out. They're in Miami and they've rented a Lambo and they're
buy the course for $9.97.
King of the world. I spent my 20s shutting up and doing as I was told. I only became a world champion kickboxer because I listened to my coach. I only became wise because I listened to my father. I spent most of my life listening before I started to talk. The internet has kind of accelerated it now where people are getting a voice much earlier on. But before the internet, you didn't get rich at 21 unless you were born rich. How?
Yeah.
And you didn't have a voice at 21 because no one would listen to you. You know, so you had to have that age to have the real world successes and the wisdom. And with that age, you often learned the life lessons that allowed you to teach people things. But I've been a very good student for a very long time, and I like to pay attention to things, and I'm constantly being corrected all of the time. And now especially, you can call it God, you can call it universe, you can call it life. There's lots of different things you can call it, but the feedback I'm receiving every single day, I'm trying to pay a lot of attention to. And we can even apply it to other things, right? So I understand that I was joking when I said some of the videos when I made some of the videos I've made that have been used against me now by the people who are saying I'm a misogynist when I'm not a misogynist. Everyone with a brain knows I was joking, that's true. But I would be a fool to not sit and say, okay, well now I'm monumentally more famous. I have to be slightly more careful how I say certain things in case they're weaponized.
Right.
You have to take feedback from things in life and use it to your advantage all of the time.
Right.
So I'm constantly and always trying to do that. And jail was a fantastic example of it, but one of the things I like most, and I won't say their names, but there's a few very prominent Muslims who I'm speaking to every day and learning from them. And the lessons in it are so important and so pertinent. And the only reason I believe I'm going to get where I want to get is because I'm a good student and I'm prepared to listen and learn. And there's a lot of people in the world who aren't prepared to listen and learn. And I find that quite interesting. And I don't think it's because people are stupid. I think the majority of people are actually brutally arrogant. Because I've had a lot of people ask for my advice on different things as well. And when I try and give it to them, they just start arguing with me back. I don't know if you've ever had that. Someone come to me and say, I want to be successful, I want to be rich. I'm like, okay, you need to do this. Oh, but I can't do that because of, why did you ask me then?
Yeah.
Why did you ask me if you have all the answers?
Yeah.
If you have all the answers, why are you not where you want to be?
Yeah.
Crazy.
There are 3 reasons most people are not successful in life. It's either stupid, lazy, or arrogant. I think less than 5% of people are too stupid to get everything they want. I've yet to see anybody truly dedicate themselves to something in life and not get it. I've never seen somebody get up at 6 a.m. every day, go to the gym every day, eat right every day, and not get in shape. Now, I've heard people say they're going to do it and not do it, or say they're doing it and lie, or say, oh, but my thyroid, or every excuse under the sun. But I've yet to see anybody just do it and not get the result they wanted. And it's the same with most things. It's the same with making money. Not many people are too stupid to make money. Not many people, if you were to give them the formula, the blueprint, and say, here, do exactly this, copy it, and do it word for word, would be too stupid to interpret what they must do. But people are too lazy and they are too arrogant. 5% of people are too stupid. The majority of people are not where they want to be, whether it's physical, financial, anything else, mental, spiritual, because they're too lazy or they're too arrogant. And laziness is a scourge, but I think arrogance is the true one, where people just truly, they want the answers, they want the shortcuts, But when you're actually trying to explain it to them, they have all the answers under the sun as to why they can't possibly do it, or it doesn't work for them, or, yeah, I can't go gym at 6 because of traffic, and I have a thyroid problem. And it's all arrogance. It's all just trying to pretend they're special and different and better than everyone else, and it's not the case.
So what about things you do to stay zen with the heat of the pressure, you know, the world on you, the matrix after you?
I've adopted all of that into my everyday life. I don't have time to sit and deliberately do something specific to keep myself grounded.
What do you do for fun?
I'm ready for all of it all of the time. You know, maybe I've lost my mind. I'm ready right now for someone to walk in here and for us to all fight to the death and end up covered in blood. I'm ready also to have a nice meal, smoke a cigar, do a podcast. Ready to go home, make some money. Ready to go make another child with my beautiful girlfriend. Ready to drive my Ferrari or my Aston Martin or my Lamborghini. I'm ready for it all. I'm permanently ready for all states of life. It's fine. And as for fun, I'm not sure I believe in fun. Is fun a thing? Is fun real? Isn't that just made up? I'm not sure what fun is. I really, truly enjoy purpose much more than fun. If you were to say to me, Andrew, this will be fun, or I could clear my notifications on my laptop, I'd probably choose to clear my notifications. It gives me a sense of peace. Peace is fun. And when your life is chaotic like mine, it's only peace that will be truly valuable. I do like to drive super fast cars. I drive cars around. That's fun, to give a simple answer. But truthfully, I look for peace all of the time because my life is chaos and my life is war. And the most fun thing I could do is nothing. The most fun thing I could do is go to the Dolomites in Italy and stay in a 5-star hotel and overlook the Alps and sit with 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 beautiful women in my bed and just do nothing. That is the most fun. Going to a club is not fun. Going out and trying to find fun is what you do when your life is not chaotic enough. When your life is truly chaotic, fun is doing nothing. And I have plenty of chaos. I had a conversation with a girl the other day, and she was talking about swimming with sharks. And I was explaining to her that she's crazy and I would never do that. And she said, oh, but it's exciting, it's dangerous. And I said, see, this is how you know you have a nice life. When your life makes you want to go swim with sharks because you're looking for danger and excitement, that shows your everyday life is nice. When I leave here, I have to make it all the way out of the hotel without getting assassinated or arrested. I'm going to be nervous, I'm going to be on edge, and I'm not going to be happy till I'm in my armored car with my armed guards. That's swimming with sharks, walking to the car. That's my life now. I'm stressed walking to a car. I do not need to go anywhere near any sharks. I'm stressed enough. So fun is doing nothing. Doing nothing is fun.
How about Mario Kart? I know I've seen videos where you play some video games.
One of the video guys who works with me is so ridiculously good at Mario Kart, it upsets me in my heart. I've only played him once, and I can't stand losing, and it was so ridiculous. We had to spar afterwards. I had to beat him up. It upset me deep, and I've never played since, and I never will.
Yeah.
He's the best.
It's funny, I ask because we're actually thinking about starting like a video game streaming thing on Kick or Twitch or whatever. And we're talking about interviewing people while playing the video games.
Nice.
So it's cool. We'll have to play Mario Kart perhaps.
All
Hopefully
right,
I'm not as
Mario
good.
Kart. There's a couple games I'm okay at, but I'm not a video gamer. But if you do start that channel, let me know. We'll see what we can do.
How about FIFA?
Then I can't play FIFA. I've only ever played Super Smash Brothers. It's the only game.
Super Smash Bros.
The only game
That's
I
fun.
can play.
Yeah. How about Mario Party?
Never played it.
Never played that game? Nice.
I've been busy. I was in jail, bro.
Yeah,
we didn't
shit
have
to do.
We didn't have Nintendo in Romanian jail. We just, unfortunately.
No, it makes
it's not
sense.
an English jail. I'm sure in English jail you get Nintendo and a flat screen TV and everything. But
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is because I'm so curious. You know, you talk about beating the Matrix, and you have the world on your side, and obviously you got people in power that are not exactly on your side. But I'm curious for you.
To interrupt you, sorry.
Go ahead.
Are the people in power on anyone's side? Does anybody in any country in the West now agree with anything their politicians do? I'm actually asking this question. Every time I see a politician talk, I think, you will not find a single person on the street who agrees with that crap. We don't want to bomb these countries. We don't want to give money to these places. None of these things they're doing, anybody wants us to do. Democracy in action, huh? If they're not on my side, they're not on anybody's side. It doesn't matter if you're in France, Germany, England, or America. I can't find a single democratic nation where any of the decisions they make benefit their own people ever, and anybody agrees with it at all. It's a miracle it still operates. It's a miracle somehow they're still pulling it off, where they stand in front of us and go, you're all going to pay loads of taxes, we're not going to fix your roads, you can't afford to eat groceries, we're giving $100 billion to someone else, thanks. Bye. Going home now for the day. Oh, and my wages have been put up. What this clown world? Of course they're against me. They're against everybody. And what do? I tell people to think and be brave. I say, get some balls and think for yourself and say what you think. So that can't be allowed to happen because they don't want to fix the sickness of society because society is sick. Instead, what they want to do is get rid of the person who points it out. And we have all these problems and everyone's pretty much accepting it. But when this guy reminds them, it causes an issue. We're not going to fix the problems. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. That's why I have to go. So sorry to interrupt you, but the people in charge don't agree with anything I say. The people in power, you're right, but they don't agree with any normal person's point of view. They don't give a shit about any of us. When's the last time you've seen any of the people in power talk about inflation, talk about the fact that the border crisis, the border's not closed, talk about rampant crime, talk about the educational system being under attack? No. What do they talk about instead? LGBT, the climate, crap no one cares about. No one cares about this crap. All they talk about is the crap no one cares about because that's the people who put them in power, those with the money who are trying to purport these garbage agendas. And all the things you do care about, you're not allowed to mention. If you mention them on a podcast like this, you're going to end up in a jail cell. Take me to fucking jail then.
Top G.
Take me to jail. Just, I don't know what the delay is. Let's go. Let's just do it.
Yeah. So, but again, I keep kind of harping on that, but it's like I'm so curious how, or maybe you don't even think of it that way in terms of how you see you coming out the other side with the heat waned off, or do you think do you think that's a possibility, or do you think it's going to be like a fight till the death?
I think as this war ends, another one will begin. I think that life just morphs from one war to the next. Even if you think about the average person's life, they think, I'll be happy once I just get over this one thing, or I'll be happy once this is done, or I'll be happy once I bought this, and it never works out like that. As this war ends, another war will begin. Life is constant and never-ending war. You can either try your very best to have an easy life and be an unimportant nobody, or you can get very good at having a hard life and at least matter as you suffer through the human experience. And I don't see an ending because I don't think war is ever going to end. The war will change, perhaps. Perhaps it's not a Romanian court. Perhaps it's something else. But the war is going to go on forever. And every single day I'm going to get up and do my best while I'm breathing. And that's the reality I'm going to live for as long as they let me live until they decide that they don't want me around anymore. And I would never kill myself. And that's the bottom line.
And I love that you say that too. You always say, I would never kill myself.
I wouldn't. When I was in jail, the first month I was in jail, I think there was 4 suicides, and I got really nervous that they were trying to set up a pattern. And I kept tweeting, I would never kill myself, never kill myself, never kill. I tweeted it nearly every other day. So that's the one psyop I don't want anyone to believe. There's no circumstance on earth in which I would kill myself, ever. You're gonna have to kill me. You're gonna have to do it. I'm not gonna make it easy for them. I'm not gonna allow them to upset me. Take my ice cream away like a little girl, boo-hoo, and me do it for them. No, do your own dirty work.
Unless, well, you were born in Washington, D.C., right?
Correct.
Unless you run for president of the United States.
Bro. How many cases has he got against him? 100? I'm only dealing with like 3. I don't know. Bro, it's 97 more.
Well, Trump's catching up.
I am praying for the West because if he doesn't win, I think it's the end of America as we know it.
In a hypothetical universe, obviously it's totally hypothetical, but if you ran for president, what was the first things, if President Tate was in office? It's crazy that sounds. What would you do? Well, it would
be 20 years from now, and I think the world will be a dramatically different place in 20 years. But I do believe that the core tenets that Western leaders are lacking are a degree of nationalism, a degree of care for their own people. I think that would be refreshing to see. Wouldn't it be nice to see a president who cares about Americans over everyone else, which is what Trump was. I think nationalism and competence are probably the 2 things that you expect in a leader of a global power like America. It's a shame that none of the current leaders have those 2 tenets. But I think that a prioritization of your own people should be your primary objective in all things. And regardless of how different the world is in 20 years from now or the geopolitical landscape, my intention would be to serve the people who put me in power. Radical idea, I know, crazy. But perhaps the people who vote for me and pay for the government that I'm in charge of should be the ones I'd be concerned about as opposed to everything and everyone else.
Yeah.
I know, crazy, I know, but
yeah.
It seems the people who are in charge are more interested in global money.
Look at this chess
And
game.
the global
Now he
finance,
has to
which
sacrifice his
people put them
queen.
there in the first place. And obviously, if you're global finance, you have no particular concern for one geographical area or nation. In fact, if you're global finance, you can benefit off the burning of a nation, off the destruction of a nation. There's no light without dark. Global finance has benefited off the exploitation of the
Sacrifice.
second and third world for a very long time to enrich the first world. And it can also benefit just as well off the destruction of the first world to enrich other parts of the planet. Most people don't understand that. People think they need to keep America alive because of the dollar and because it's America. No,
Resign.
They can live in Saudi or Tanzania. They can
I
live
just
in
want
Manchester
another chess
anywhere.
match.
They have a globe master, so they can fly anywhere they want.
Whilst
and if
watching
America
TATE.
being decimated or destroyed will benefit them and make them forever profit, they have no problem with that because they are globalist. It's a different attitude. I know what I'm talking about because I'm as rich as these fuckers, and I'm telling you, you get to a certain point where you can be anywhere, and if your allegiance isn't to a particular land. Let me put it this way. There are very powerful people in the world today who you could say, and they could be American, born American, and you could say to them, you will make forever profit, but America will degrade at a rate of 0.2% every single year for the rest of your human life, but you will make forever profit with your company.
They'll do
They
it.
will say yes. And they'll think, it'll be okay, because all of the crime and all the degradation will hit areas they don't live in cities they don't live in neighborhoods they don't live in, while they're in America, if they're in America at all. And if you compound that across a bunch of people with power, 0.2%, 0.1%, 0.3%, 0.4%, all adds up, and you start to realize why society is being destroyed and why these people don't care, because they don't experience it. The average person experiences it, and the average person is stuck with it because they can't move. They don't have a private jet, and they can't leave, and they don't have global money. They have one job in one place, and they are stuck there. And those are the people who suffer. And that's the reality. And then these people get the people who are in charge into power to represent the people, but they don't represent the people, they represent the global money. And that's why they make the decisions they make and talk about the things they talk about, and they'll talk about anything important. Try and distract you, keep you confused. Inflate the currency to zero, but keep us arguing about whether men can get pregnant or not. All a clown show, it's all garbage. Andrew points out the truth, destroy him with the legal system. Now we're in a current predicament, our current quagmire. If Andrew walks, he becomes more powerful than ever before. Romania is embarrassed, DCOT is embarrassed, FBI is embarrassed. MSM is embarrassed. BBC said he's a human trafficker. Can't just lose the credibility of the BBC. We need them to lie to people. Oh, but he's innocent. Yeah, but no, he may be innocent, but look at all this mess it causes.
Yeah.
Isn't it easier just to put him in jail?
If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah. If you beat this
Wow.
case, and when you beat this case, and you have the whole world's support with you, a lot of people, where do you see yourself moving to?
That's another good question. Maybe I'll become a globalist. Maybe I'll live on a little boat, TATE yacht, with my 11 wives, settled down, all my children, some machine guns.
What would you call your yacht? Everybody has a name for their yacht. What would you call yours?
The International Master, which is not a girl's name, but my father was an international master of chess. That's what I call it.
What would your pop say if he was still around today about where you're at right now?
I think part of him would laugh. I don't think he'd be surprised.
Son of a gun.
Yeah, he'd be like, I knew it. I don't think he'd be surprised at all. He understood how the government and how the world works. He'd be 0% surprised. He'd certainly be proud of me. I know this, it sounds a bit crazy. This was all meant to happen. I can't explain it. My father was telling me things from a very young age which made no sense until I was in jail. Perhaps this version of reality has existed before. Perhaps we're in a simulation, I'm not sure. But I don't think he'd be 1% surprised. If he came back to life for an hour and I told him what happened, he'd be like, yep, duh. Anything new? Anything else?
Yeah.
Say, well, Biden's president. And that would be it. Like, if you're a man who tries his absolute best and is brutally competent and speaks against authority, there's only one path. Where else was this going to end? Where else does this end? Where else have people who have inspired millions who spoke against authority ever ended up besides jail or death?
Good point. The Matrix is calling.
The Matrix is calling.
Time's up.
Crazy. Subscribe for part 2. Guys, that was absolutely insane. If you enjoyed that, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, obviously join the channel. And if you are a serious entrepreneur who doesn't want to put God aside, you want to obtain success without losing God, link will be somewhere in the description down below. Join our community where we take it serious. It's our paid community. It's paid for a reason. Those people who pay, they pay attention. And trust me, we're making all kinds of gains. Financial gains, physical gains, and spiritual gains. What more could you ask for? Ronnie and P.